Okay, I will try to speak louder. First, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, organizers, for taking me here. It's really nice to be in Odessa and meet so many nice people. Today I will speak about building web applications on Symfony 4 and how the way of developing web applications changed with Symfony 4. Before we start, I'm just interested how many of you is using Symfony, like every day? Symfony 4? And Symfony 4 in production. Okay, just few, yeah, that's cool. Okay, now when I know you, it's time to introduce myself. My name is Peric Symfony4. I'm from Split, Croatia. I'm the CEO of Locastic. Also, I'm co-founder of Blog Split conference, which is the topic of the conference is blockchain. We started that last year. We also started a year ago Tinel meetup. We are doing that once per month, inviting a lot of foreign speakers to Croatia. Marco was there at April, I think, or something like that. And we are starting to use. I started to use Symfony in version 1.4, and I started to using Symfony 4 in January this year. We got one small project. I will talk a little bit later about that. We got a project that we need to crawl some website to take some data, store it in a database, and show some statistics to our customer. And it was quite easy to start with Symfony 4 to building that small project. At the end, it wasn't a small project, but it was quite a good showcase for Symfony 4, I will say. A few words just about Locastic. We are located in Split. We are founded in 2011. We are doing tailor-made web and mobile software, and also a lot of user experience and user interfaces. I put a picture of my hometown, Split, because it could be compared to Odessa. One of my friends who is traveling around told me that Odessa is for Ukraine the same thing as Split for Croatia. And I noticed that a lot of people here are like really calm, don't care about anything, and making a lot of jokes, which is also the same in Croatia. I put this thing on the slide. You all know what is this. This is evolution of the man, and I think we are living in a period in a time when web is changing a lot. So 2, 5, 6 years ago, we have like monolithic applications with a lot of jQuery or things like that on front end, and we had some full stack framework on the back end like Symfony 1.4, and that worked very well. Today we have different kind of websites with much heavier front end focused on user experience, and back end like microservices, APIs, or things like that. And I also think that we can compare this picture with the evolution of Symfony. So if I remember well, in 2011 it was released Alpha 7 Symfony 2 version, so until that period we used Symfony 1.4. It was full stack framework, just regular front end, back end, and that was it. Nothing special in that. It was a lot of magic inside Symfony 1.4, if you remember, but that worked okay for some, I will say, medium to large applications. In 2011, Symfony 2.0 was released, and it was like a little bit different. It still was full stack framework for building monolithic applications, but we have decoupled components. So the idea of distribution was if you need to build something for yourself, you need to set up your distribution or some custom-made component thing. That didn't work very well. So basically, whenever we start a new project, I assume it was a situation with you, you started with Symfony Standard Edition. And you had a lot of code that you didn't use. That is something that will change with Symfony 4. Actually, it is changed. In Symfony 3, nothing special happened. It was just transition period from Symfony 2 to Symfony 4. So we locked all the features, and we had a lot of deprecated code which was removed in Symfony 4. So yeah, the Symfony 4, I will say, something very, very important for us as PHP community, for us as Symfony developers, because we have different way of thinking about our stack, about applications. We can use the same framework for building micro things, microservices or APIs or full stack websites. It doesn't important. You are starting basically with nothing, just fundamentals of framework, and then you are adding things that you need for your stack. And you are making all decisions, what do you want to have in your stack. And that's, you will see, it's a great way to start building the applications. The date of releasing was last day of November in 2017, so it's not a year yet, but it will be soon that we have Symfony 4 version released. This is just the explanation from Fabien Potessier blog site, what is in Symfony 3, 4, and 2.8. So he said that Symfony 3.0 was very boring, and Symfony 3 is equal Symfony 2.8 minus deprecated features. And you can see here that Symfony 4.0 was equal to Symfony 3.4 minus deprecated features plus new way to develop application. And that's something that I will talk mostly today about, that new way how we should think and how we should build applications. So what could be better than Symfony 3.4? So we can, if you start a new project with Symfony 3 or 2, there is always the same way of adding the bundles. So you need to install bundle via Composer, then you need to read some README file, configure that, and that's not plug and play system how it should work. Of course, if you need to remove that, it's even more painful because you need to go in other direction, find all the things that you configured, that you changed or add, and you need to remove that. Did anyone of you who use Symfony 2.0 try to remove twig or form component from the stack? That was like really pain in the ass. It was not easy task. And I tried that, I think, 3-4 times, and I just decided not to do that. Like, okay, leave it. It doesn't matter. The standard edition of Symfony is not good enough because we are always using inheritance for building our custom application using that standard edition, and also the distribution ecosystem didn't work. We had, I think, 2 or 3 distributions, like standard one as official one. We had API distribution based on FOSS res bundle, which was partially good, I will say. And we also had some demo application inside that Symfony Standard Edition, which was also pain in the ass to remove. But once when it was removed from the repository, it was like, for the newbies, like where can we see some examples, how we should work. That was also bad. And last thing, there was awful feeling, like you always had so much of code, especially in vendor folder, which you are not using. Like there is, I don't know, for example, form component, and you are building some REST APIs, you don't need form component, but that still exists in your code. And that was like, no, it was not a good feeling, I will say. There was always feeling that it could be faster, it could be better, it could be more flexible. This is the ideal experience, again, from Fabien Potessier blog. As a developer, I want to start small with any dependencies, and I want to be able to grow with my application. I want to start as micro framework, and then I want to build big monolithic system, or I want to build many microservices or APIs, whatever. And why is this true? It's true because the composition is much better than inheritance. Not every project needs database, not every project needs templates like Twig or things like that. Because of that, the 70% of the vendors that we used in Symfony Standard Edition, it was useless. We didn't need it. So what about Symfony 4? In Symfony 4, we are starting as micro framework. You don't have anything. You have only one. You'll see later we have Flux, and we have like framework fundamentals as a dependency. We are composing our application, so we are basically thinking about our stack, what we need, what we don't need, and we are putting piece by piece. I created some small, let's call it demo, you will see later just to see how Flux works. And in this case, you can build whatever you want. Like you can build APIs, you can be microservices, you can build console app. For example, this project I mentioned at the beginning, the scraper one was, at the beginning, it was only console project. We had console, we had Symfony crawler inside it, and the console was running with cron job at the beginning, scraping the website. Of course, later we added dependency for RabbitMQ and things like that. We scaled, and then we add a bunch of more things because of the banning APIs and things like that. So this was like casualties of Symfony. Every good thing is bring some bad news, or maybe not so bad. So if you used Silex is no longer maintained. After some period of time, it will be maintained for security and bug issues, but we don't need this anymore because we have Symfony, which is performing maybe even better than Silex. So what is the Symfony Flux? Symfony Flux is just Composer plugin, which do some additional things. You will see in next slides how it works. It works in a way that there are receipts, and that receipt says what to do to configure some bundle. So I will say the Symfony Flux was the component that was missing, because the fun fact is that Composer started as a conversion about plugins for adding bundles or removing bundles from Symfony and PHP BB. But at the end, we did everything manually. So we added configuration, we removed configuration. With Symfony Flux, we don't need to do that. The aim of the Symfony Flux is to have zero configuration inside our project. So how it works? So after you run Composer require or Composer install, the Symfony Flux asks Symfony Flux server, is there any information about package? If there is none any information about package, if recipe is missing or doesn't exist or whatever, nothing happens. So you need to configure that manually, or you can create recipe and create pull request for that. If receipts exist, then server says, yes, I'm sending the receipts, and then Composer do with packages any tasks that required from him. So for example, this is one receipt. Actually, this is a receipt for a mailer. So it's a Swift mailer, and we see that we have 3 tasks for that receipt. First one is to add this to our stack. So we need to include that bundle inside our kernel, and it says included for all environments. This all can be dev test, or usually it's dev test or production or all. After that, it says copy from recipe to the config folder. So there is recipe existing in repository. It will be just copy pasted to our project, and every configuration will be separated. So we will no longer have like one configuration file with, I don't know, 1,000 lines of configuration. We will have each component configured separately. And that's also very nice, because it's much easier to see what is changing, how to add, where to change. And the last thing is here is add some environment variables. We are no longer using YAML for configuring the variables. We are using .n component. I will mention that a little bit later. And it will just add these values to that file. At the end, we have allies. So we can require Symfony /Swift mailer, or we can require mailer or mail, and it will be the same. So we have these shortcuts for official components that we can use with Composer and require that packages that we need. Okay, about Symfony Flux receipts, there are 2 repositories. One is just receipts, and second one is receipts contrib. The difference is that the first one is maintained by Symfony core team, and they are guaranteed the quality of the components and the receipts. Of course, another thing is that they can use alias. For example, Easy Admin Bundle is official admin for Symfony Flux. So if you use Composer require admin, you will get Easy Admin Bundle. Symfony receipts contrib, anyone can contribute. So any third-party open source bundle can be contributed there as a receipts, but you cannot use alias. That's the most important difference. Okay, this is the symfony.sh, so you can the list of all receipts that are available for Symfony 4, contributed and official one. Okay, directory structure. Can you read this in the last row? Can you see? Oh, yeah, okay. So the directory structure is a little bit different than in Symfony 2 and Symfony 3. So we have bin, config, public, src, var, and vendor folders on the top level. And the first one, config, is where all configuration goes in. In bundles.php, we are including our bundles in any environment that we want. In public PHP, it's our front-end controller. We don't need any more app-dev, app-test, or something like that, because the environment is managed through the variables defined in our environment here. Then we have src folder. That's where our code goes. So whatever you build, it will go to the src code. And there is no bundles anymore. And this namespace for this src folder is app/. Okay. Var is just for cache and log. Vendor, you know what's that. And we have some additional files like environment, composer.json, and Symfony lock. Symfony lock is for Flux. It keeps all informations about install packages and are about receipts applied. So if we remove something later, he can read what is applied and remove that from our code base. About bundleless application, I will say there was like huge discussions. You all probably know about that. Should we use bundles or should we not use bundles? At the beginning of Symfony 2, I remember it was strange for me for use bundles. Then after a while, I got used for that. And then after, it was strange to work a little bit without bundles, but they are like nonsense. You don't need them, actually. You can separate your code in a src folder through the folders. You can decouple from framework, do whatever you want. You don't need to use bundles, that's true. And in Symfony 4, support for using bundles is removed, so you cannot even use it. Also, the inheritance in all way from the bundles is also removed in Symfony 4, so you cannot use that also. So I will say, like, usually when people are complicating things and trying to do in so much different ways, if you want to have some kind of standardization, it's much better to remove some feature and have only one option. Okay, also it reduces the perceived complexity, and also you are making feel like your code is not coupled too much to the framework. Okay, let's try to do some small demo. I will set up the project and I will show a few things with Symfony Flex. I will use the setup that as we started to build our crawler at the beginning. So the idea will be to create some Symfony console application, a web crawler. We won't do any crawling the website or building the code. We will just do some installation of the packages with Symfony Flex. So the first thing that we need to do is to create new Symfony project from the Symfony skeleton, and then we will check what we have inside our code. Okay, can you read this, or it is too small? Okay. Okay, it's better now. So composer. Create project Okay, this should run downloading the new project from Symfony skeleton. It's maybe a little too big for now, but we can see what we did here. So we installed 21 dependencies that we need instead of 70 components, I think, that were in Symfony Standard Edition, so it's much, much less than at the beginning. I will just open PHP Storm to show you what we have inside our code. Okay, I will use this one. It's not important. Okay, this is a different project, but it's not important. So in Symfony, in Composer JSON file, we have just few dependencies. We won't have a backend core. We will edit that later. So we have Flux, we have framework bundle, we have console. That's basically everything that we have inside our project. If we require something else, like I required in this project, web backend core and framework and DOM crawler, it will be added automatically. So basically what we need to add, for example, template, it's just composer rec template. Okay, and I will get twig as template. Official template for Symfony is a twig. And we will see the similar thing for doctrine, and I will show you how to remove that, and that's basically what you need to know about using the Flux, because it is quite easy. So when we added the composer template, you will see that I got new folder. So the new folder is templates here, and that's the folder where our templates are going in Symfony 4. So you have a lot more, I will say, higher level of standard for Symfony 4 than Symfony 2 or Symfony 3, because in Symfony 2 or Symfony 3 you could have your templates on a few directories, for example. Also in our config, you will see that I got twig YAML configuration. So that's added automatically. I will show you how to remove it because it's quite easy to do that. So just composer remove. Okay, and it is gone. So both the twig YAML configuration file and templates folder, it's gone. So it's quite easy. If you do some mistake, you require something that you don't need, it's quite easy to remove it. And I will say that that's one of my favorite features for in a new version of Symfony Flux. Just to switch back to slides. Okay. So yeah, I show that. So when you are starting the Symfony 4 applications, you can choose between two skeletons. One is website skeleton, it's for traditional web applications, and second one is this simple skeleton that we use, which is used for microservices, APIs, or console applications. For example, if you start with this and you require API, you will get entire API platform inside Symfony project, and you can use that in any Symfony 4 project, or maybe even 3.4 where we are supporting the Symfony Flux. Very easy, just as plug-in and use. So this was like a very nice comment on a Twitter. Like, if you remember from the beginning of Symfony 2, we used download zip file. Then we got Composer, then we started using Composer, but Composer had a lot of problems in past, so it was quite slow. Then in Symfony 3, we got some Symfony installer that actually pre-packed everything download for us, and it was like good solution, but still it was something additional that we needed to use to install Symfony, and now we have the simplest way of installing Symfony through the Symfony skeleton, which get us very few dependencies. Okay, we saw this, I will just skip this slide, and I will talk a little bit about auto-wiring. So auto-wiring was introduced in Symfony 3 version, and it doesn't require anymore to configure all the services that you are using. So basically you just need to define your class, you just need to define what are you injecting in that class, and it will be done automatically for you. So it reads type annotations, use that as the IDs, and create that service with injected services for you. This is the configuration of the default configuration of the Symfony 4. As you can notice, the default configuration for Symfony 4 is written in YAML files. So by the default, everything is auto-wired, it says here, and also all the services are marked as false. So if you need to make some services public, you need to explicitly say, okay, I want to use this service publicly. In this line, we define that everything that is in app names in a folder src in app namespace that should configured as it should be included if it is defined in dependency injection, entity migration tests, or kernel PHP. So it won't create services for that. And app controllers are created as a services at the end because we want to be able to inject other services inside our controllers. And this is how auto-wiring works in a code. So you just need to define some services and you need to inject some other services without any configuration in XML, YAML, or whatever you are using. So it's quite easy, and this saves a lot of time when you are building new projects or some prototype and you want to do some things quickly and go to the market. Symfony Webpack and Core is I assume if you use Symfony 2 that you work a lot with the ascetic bundle, and usually front-end technologies move quite faster than ascetic bundle. So it was really hard to use that in any bigger project. So usually people start to using something on the front-end side like NPM or Yarn or whatever. With Symfony Webpack and Core, it just wrap Webpack, and it's quite easy to use it. It gives us one additional layer on that, and it's much more easier, I would say, to configure than if you are using the Webpack regularly. So the only what you need to do is composer require Webpack and Core, and you will get this assets folder with CSS and JS file. Also, it is pre-configured, so it will build all the JS and CSS files that you need for your project. Of course, you can customize this, but it's quite easy. The first time when you set up that, maybe you will have few issues, but at the end, it's just set up configuration, start writing JavaScript or CSS inside the folder, and in your public folder, it will be outputted, and you can use it. Also, it can be minimized, and all the things that we did with assets bundle. .n component is also new. It's used for configuring variables and environments in Symfony 4. So what .n components parses is .env files to make environment variables, and we can get them through the getn or $-n or server variables. It's also composer requires Symfony.n, and it's quite easy to use. So basically, you just need to define which file you want to parse, and you need to load it, and then you can use the function to get that. You saw that the configuration inside the project is that in .n file, so we are no longer using any other things except this in Symfony 4. Performance. This was like very interesting point of view, I will say. Fabian Potencier wrote this, that Laravel 5.5 is 3 times slower than Symfony 4. And it's true if we just compare this skeleton version of a Symfony. But of course, Laravel comes with a lot of dependencies which make it slower, but this is just hello world test. If you compare it on a similar stack, Symfony is still faster, but not 3 times as he mentioned here. Of course, this was discussed on Twitter a lot, and it was not something that was accepted so easy by founder of Laravel. If we compare the Symfony with Symfony 3.4, which was the slowest release since Symfony 2.0, we can say that probably deprecated features are one of the reasons, because the Symfony 4 is totally clean up from deprecated features from 3.4, and Symfony 4 is the fastest version of the Symfony released until now. Of course, if you use PHP 7.2 instead of 7.1, you will get more performance improvement with Symfony 4. Also, this is something what happened in February of 2018. Nicholas Grekas published that he makes Symfony routing 77 times faster. That's amazing when we are looking in the numbers. There are 2 blog posts about that, so if you are interested, please read that. It's quite interesting to see how it is optimized, how it is used, but 77 times is a huge number. Also, with releasing Composer, PHP 1.7, we will get some improvements on downloading the Symfony files for starting our projects. So that's also something that is happening now. Updating to Symfony 4 from versions 2 or 3.4, it's also possible. It's not something very hard to do. You just need to switch your mindset to Symfony Flux. You need to change the way how you organize your folders, and then you need to include stack. But for example, if you are upgrading from 2.8 to 4, you should upgrade it first to 3.4 and then move to version 4. Why? Because they are the same set of the features, you will have the same components, but you will just need to clean a little bit code and organize the folders, and it will be much easier than just jump to the version 3. So I suggest you, if you want to upgrade from Symfony 2, and that will be, I will say, good move, go to 3.4 and then move to Symfony 4. This is just a list of few improvements that are happening in version 4.1. There is like 6 blog posts and huge list of improvements that are already done and implemented in 4.1 version. So just some of them are session improvements, console improvements, workflow improvements. We got the messenger component. Tobias will talk about that. I think we got that before 4.1. And you can see the list of entire features that are implemented. It's like 5 times scrolling through the screen to see all the list what was improved. And this is the roadmap. As we can see, the next version is 4.2. And I think the reason why a lot of people is not using the Symfony 4 in production is that because we still don't have long-term support version. I tried to search when it will be. I'm not sure. I didn't find that information, but probably 4.4 or 4.3. But as we can see, the next one is 4.2, and it will be supported for a year and a half, or a year and 2 months, something like that. Okay, so 7 months later, after we started using the Symfony 4 for our production project, how it's feeling. Like, it was strange at the beginning because we need to think about entire stack. So few times we tried to use some components, then we decided to use some other components, and we changed a few things during development cycles, but it was not hard. It was quite easy, as I showed you, like just add, okay, I did mistake, remove that, and that was like really easy. It feels like you have much more flexibility and your code is cleaner. You are not coupling so much to the framework. Maybe it's not realistic picture that you are getting, but still it's better feeling than with version 2 and 3. Also, Flux is something that you will get in low with very soon because it saves you a lot of time, especially with configuration. I don't know if you remember, if you use API platform, for example, before Flux, and if you wanted to implement FOSS user bundle as user provider, it took like 20 minutes to copy-paste all the things and configure them. That's past. You are not doing that anymore. Of course, the new code structure is also something that is more natural. So when you open the code, when you see the templates folder, you know that Twig is inside. It's not in app resources. It's not in some bundle, which is web bundle or whatever. And I will say that Symfony community is awesome, because if you see what are they doing, like how they are planning, how they are reviewing and changing the framework, it's amazing. And still every release is perfectly on time, on date. They are predicting. Symfony is also great as micro framework. For example, our project started as really small console application. Now we have like admin generator logging for the users, a lot of custom dashboards and things like that. We also use the Encore for some JavaScript things, and it was like very easy. Like we just start working, and then we need doctrine, okay, add doctrine. We need crawler, okay, add a crawler. At some point we decided that we need to scale with RabbitMQ, so we added that. It was really, really, really easy. Okay, the one thing that we should notice, like Symfony 2 was also very easy to start, but I will say at the end was a little bit harder to master, to understand all the things. And I think that Symfony is going in one direction that is providing high level of abstraction for developers, which is good. You can produce same things in smaller amount of time. But for the new Symfony developers, I think some things will be harder to understand. Like, if you don't understand how auto-wiring is working, how dependency injection container is working, it will really hard for new developers to understand that, because it will feel like some kind of magic, I will say. I think when I summarize everything, the feeling working with Symfony 4 comparing to Symfony 3 and Symfony 2, it's much, much better. And definitely that's something that we started to use in every new product in production. Thank you. Questions?
Questions, guys? Thank you too. Yeah, it was good.
Thanks.
Так, ребят, вопросы есть у кого? Вопросы? Как установить, может быть, не знаю. О, вот.
Yeah, I have t-shirt, but yeah, I asked you. Actually, thank you for your speech. It was interesting, and I have a lot of questions about Symfony, actually, but I ask maybe a couple. And one of them about auto-wiring. Yeah, when I started to use it, I noticed that actually I want to manage scope of variables. Yeah, so I want to allow this kind of services, just see only these services. Yeah, and that's it. So I want to control my scope. But is there any ability to do this with Symfony 4.1 and their auto-wiring? So actually, I manage this with dependency injection container, but I do like a customer solution, a customization, yeah, and I do this like during my custom configuration, yeah. I just allow to use the particular container. Okay. Yeah, in case of auto-wiring, do you have such kind of implementation to?
We didn't have that kind of implementation. The only way that we are using is this private public. We manage it with that.
It's not about this. For example, actually, I told about the context. Yes, so I have context. And I want to all object of this context. Yeah, can see only each other, but I have another context. Yeah.
I think you can do that with tagging the services.
Sorry.
With tagging the services.
Tagging.
Yeah, I think you can resolve that in that way.
Okay, so I can use tagging and it can separate my context. Yeah. Okay, my scope.
Yeah, I think you can do that.
Okay, thank you. And another question is more general, maybe about Symfony, but maybe you have your opinion. I started to use it maybe several weeks ago, and I noticed that you use traits. Yeah. But for me, traits, it's not about OOD or OP, yeah, so it's more about like workarounds. But what is your main philosophy? Why do you use it, actually, traits? Because it's, for example, for me, when I start to debug in your code, I want to understand how it works, actually. It was very complicated when, traits, and it's not easy to actually manage to understand, to realize how it works.
Maybe I'm not the best person to answer that. Maybe Tobias can help that as core developer. I think the traits are nice for using it, but maybe from Symfony philosophy, I'm not sure that I'm the right person to answer you that.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Rебята, еще кто-то? Я понял, окей, хорошо, есть у меня вопрос. Нет, вот есть. Отлично.
Thank you for the speech. And I want to. How many time you spend to develop Symfony core, and what inspired you to do this after the work?
I'm not developing the Symfony core. I'm using Symfony 4 clients projects.
You only plan this.
Sorry.
And you only plan the work of the Symfony core.
No, I don't have time for that. Unfortunately, I will love to have more time because I discussed also that with Tobias. Like there is only like certain amount of people that are contributing to code, but for me personally, I don't have so much time to do contribution on a core of Symfony. I'm using that as my tool for building clients projects. That's the only thing that I'm doing. I'm contributing to some other small open source things, but not at Symfony core.
Okay, thanks.
But I think like inspiration for contributing the Symfony will be like a really great community, and you can learn a lot from them. Like that could be very, very good inspiration. If you have time, of course.
Okay, ребят, кто-то еще? Первый ряд.
Do you have real project in production in Symfony 4.
Yes, we have.
Could you share your experience, how it works? Do you get your expectations?
Okay, I told you a little bit about that project. Like in January, we got the project that we need to build some crawler. It was like at the first really small project. So it was perfectly project for starting with Symfony 4 because we expected that will be like really small one with console things and crawler, and we started with that. After a while, projects grow up as that happen usually, and we just started to adding new things, and we didn't have any problems using the Symfony. That period, a lot of bundles were not supported with receipts. So the only problem was that bundles that are not supported with receipts, you need to configure that manually. That happens, I think, for two bundles, if I remember well, at the beginning. Now there is a lot of them covered with receipts, so it's not a problem at all. I will say it was a little bit strange at the beginning, but the feeling was good, and it was very, very flexible for us. So we did few mistakes in creating the stack, then we just removed that, add new things, and move forward. And later we add a bunch of things, and it works perfectly. I wouldn't go back and use, I don't know, a manual configuration for anything. I'm quite lazy guy, so the Flux is something that fits perfectly for me.
Thank you. Did you upgrade to 4.1?
Not yet, but we will do that soon. But I have another answer for your question. We still didn't upgrade from 3.4. We have one huge project that is based on Symfony 3.4 and API platform. We use that. We started that with 3.4 because of the long-term support, and because in that period it wasn't quite ready for using the Symfony 4 with API platform. It was mid of last year, August, something like that. So we didn't want to risk because we didn't have any experience. But now in next 3 to 4 months we are planning to upgrade that because we want to gain some performance that you saw from Symfony 4. I don't think it will be like the code is a lot. If it is a situation with your project as ours that the code is quite decoupled from framework, then it should not be a problem. It should be a matter of weeks, not months, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Еще вопрос, да?
I have a question about your product. You said that you use Symfony 4 and use bundles, standard bundles. I have a question. There you have your bundles, what you created, your team, and bundles that was created by someone. And what's the percent of using your code or existing bundles?
We had a lot of bundles that we produced in the last 3 years, but we are not anymore. We dropped working in the bundles because we never reused that. So it was nonsense to separate the code inside the bundles that we did, like, I don't know, 4 years ago. So usually today we are not using any of our bundles for some things. If we use something, we publish that as open source, and then we use that in that way. But we are not doing any code, if that was your question. We are not building any application inside bundles, because usually our projects are quite different with custom logic, so we cannot reuse anything. If it is a matter of some blog bundle or things like that, that exist in open source community, so we use that.
Okay, it was a question, not exactly bundle, about the amount of code you created and you used from external sources.
It depends on the project. Like, we have these projects which is like applied in 18 countries. There is much more our code than in bundles. But then we have the small projects. Like this crawler is still like not a big project in matter of code. It's more problem of architecture and how we are trying to get data regarding the security of other sites and things like that. But in that project, like level of code we wrote, it's it's minimal. It's more a matter of configuration. For example, for admin, only some custom things are written by our code. So I would say in that project is maybe 20 to 80%. In this other project is maybe 70 to 30 in our codes and comparison. But I don't think it's even matter.
So you can say that the Symfony 4 is better to create your code, not use existing bundles.
No, I didn't say that. You will still use the bundles that exist. Just you won't configure them manually, but if, for example, if FOSS user bundle fits well for your projects, go for it, use it. If doesn't fit, it's very easy to write your custom user provider and then use that. For example, on the latest project that I'm working on, I'm not using FOSS user bundle because it doesn't fit for my project. We created custom user provider, which was 50 minutes of work. So it depends on the project, but still there is great community, there are great bundles. You will, of course, use them if that fits for your project. That's the thing you need to decide on your team, on your project, in your team, on your project, of course.
I see, thanks.
Thank you.
One more.
Thanks for your presentation. You talk about something on blockchain. Do you use any blockchain in your project with Symfony in another framework?
No. I'm in non-government organization that organized the conference about blockchain, but I'm not doing any development of blockchain. I'm interested in technology. I'm following what's happening. I don't have even that opinion that will change entire world, but technology is interesting, and we are doing mostly some front-end integration and some user experience integration for some blockchain projects. Two of them will change the world, probably. I'm kidding. I don't think I can discuss about that at the moment because they are not yet live. So. It's about creating some chain for something, but it's not about trading. It's actually focused on resolving some certain problems. One is about that I can speak about that one. Is about I think it's in English dental industry, for fixing your teeth. Usually, if you go to the doctor, usually the dentist will try to screw you. So the guy has an idea to try to fix that market. I'm not sure will it be possible, but we are doing some front-end integration for them. Usually our clients have some development teams which are usually in Ukraine, so we are just focusing on user experience and front-end integration.
Окей, я думаю, с вопросами... еще один, давайте последний, и все. И у нас будет перерывчик.
Thank you for presentation. When I used Symfony 4, one thing was confusing a little bit, the .env parameters. So earlier we defined them in parameters YAML file in one place, and in Symfony 4 for different environments, I need to define, for example, for dev environment in .env file, for production on the web server level, and for test environment in PHP unit XML. So it feels a little bit confusing. So what do you think? Maybe is there a better approach to define in one place those
I don't
parameters?
think that I use the same stack. It was a little bit annoying for me at the beginning because for me, the definition in YAML was really simple. I just defined dev, production, test, and everything was in one place. And it was separated, I don't know, username, port, and things like that for database. And then we switched to this. At the beginning, it was little bit, as I told you, annoying and confusing. But then I got used to that, and it's almost the same thing for me because you create that you touch that file for 2-3 times, usually, and that's it. So I just define that and don't think about that anymore.
Is it okay to duplicate some parameters in this case for different environments?
I think for every different environment, you should have separated configuration files. So we have one on production server, which defines the production environment, and we have each developer has locally defined his. Of course, for local environments things. We have for tests also defined in PHP unit XML file, I think. So it's same as you described. It works.
Thank you.
Спасибо, ребят. Симфония — это хорошо. Все, кто работает на симфонии, это тоже хорошо. Антонио, you need to choose the best question.
The best question. I need to remember all the questions. I will choose this one here because I'm not sure did I give him the
first one?
No. The first guy, the second question about dependency injection, hiding the services and things like that. Because I'm not sure did I give you the exact answer.
Ничего, будет вторая. Почему бы и нет?
But thank you all for the questions.
Скажут спасибо, ребят. Thank you.